Okay, everyone. So part one of this video is the transfer window. How was it? What did we learn? And what was surprising? And what was unsurprising? I think let's start with the first one. How was it? To be brutally honest, it was okay. It was quite average, to be honest. There's still about 2.5 weeks to go, so things could still change, and things really have amped up, I would say, significantly in the last 2 weeks since August came around. It's really amped up because it's the final month, as we would expect, and the league starts in literally 4 days. So teams have to now get things done. They have to get things over the line. They really do. If they've been dawdling, now is the time to act. So yeah, maybe not as many high profile, like big transfers this season. I think there has been quite a lot of transfers potentially in terms of number, but in terms of like sheer amazement transfers, I wouldn't say there's necessarily been a super amount of elite players switching between clubs. I think a lot of it now, what we're seeing is was a lot of like more like standard to like solid players coming through the doors at their clubs. And positions that clubs really needed, they just brought someone in. I think that was pretty clear. Also, a lot of clubs are trying to clear out squads. They're trying to clear out squads. So yeah, this kind of molds me into my second point. What have we learned? I think what we've learned is that the window is pretty tough, guys. Money is tight now. Compared to last season, we had clubs spending 90 mil on Kane. We had Arsenal spending 100 million on Declan Rice. We had Chelsea signing Caicedo for 100 and for 120 million. I think it was last season as well. Enzo Fernandez for 110 million. It was really big signings last season, and lots of and kind of like elite type signings. This season it's more about about the most good transfers this window have been probably between 40 million and 60 million is what most clubs are being able to really afford for somebody. I think that's quite telling. That's the way it's gone now. That's the way it's gone now. That's the way the market is. And a lot of clubs are also very stingy about the prices, or something else we've learned. Clubs, we've learned this season, are not willing to negotiate down very much. I think people thought Ivan Toney would go down from about 50 million to 30 million. I strongly doubt that, even at this point. I think if someone wanted him at this point, they'd still probably have to pay 40 to 45 million, especially now because the backup they already got for him is now injured. Spurs wanted Dominic Solanke. 65 mil, we, at the beginning of the window, were already showing some interest, but said, no, we're not willing to pay a 65 mil. Well, when push came to shove, and there was only 1 week left of the season to go, Euros were done, everything was done, people were itching, Postecoglou was itching, the fans were itching. Levy sat down and I think pretty quickly realized he's not going to get a massive bargain deal here. What would we have liked to have spent on him? Probably, I'd say 40 to 50 and maybe throw in another player or put some add-ons or something like that. What did we have to end up paying? 57 million, guys. 57 mil upfront with the potential to rise by another, up to that 65 million release clause. But basically, we are playing the 65 million release clause anyway. But it's to be expected. It's English tax, guys. It's Prem experience plus English tax. If you want a player who's played in England for quite a few years and managed to score 19 goals for a team that didn't finish super low, 12, managed to pile up to 12 in the league, for a team who should technically be somewhat relegation form, England international, has had a cap for England, someone who wants to break into the England squad, someone who's the most valuable player in their team, you're going to pay that. You're going to pay that amount. That's the reality of it. And a lot of clubs have been learning it the hard way. Arsenal had to pay 40 to 45 million to get Calafiori from Italy. That's not even English tax. That's just an English centre-back who had one really good season at Bologna now and a pretty decent for otherwise poor Italian squad Euros. But he managed to do something, didn't he? He did. So now he's got his big move to Arsenal. Someone was always going to snap Calafiori up. So yeah, I think that's what we've learned. I think what we've also learned in terms of Spurs specifically is the difference between Johan Lange and Fabio Paratici as sporting directors. I think both had their own pros and cons. In terms of sheer excitement and, anticipation and getting people amped up and hyped up for a transfer window, there's no doubt as to who the more exciting sporting director is, and that's Fabio Paratici, because he goes out there and he puts a name out. Every part of his negotiations are highlighted for the public. He throws everything out into the public domain. Fabrizio Romano gets his things. Fabrizio Romano comments his things. So Spurs like this guy. Oh, no, another one this guy. Oh, they're still negotiating for this guy. Oh, but now they might turn attention to this one. They're threatening that they're going to do this for this club or whatever. Oh, they're unwilling to pay this amount of money. They want to pay that amount of money. Everything was very well known. Okay? You knew what was happening. And he would put up some very sly, sneaky deals. Spend a lot of time sometimes negotiating, getting things really ironed out, really trying to be almost a bit sly with how he gets the transfers done, right? And sometimes pull up a bit of some really unexpected ones, or some real, what you call diamonds in the rough. That was his thing. Also, Paratici was set out by Conte they just wanted to go out there and sign specific players that were elite. That was what Conte basically told Paratici. He said, I want an elite centre-back, I want an elite striker. And Paratici said, okay, cool, let me go out and find one. Boom. I think that was it. That was about it. That was probably the level of commitment. With Lange, it's a lot more boring. I think we've learned that now. With Lange, what he does, and what him, Postecoglou and Levy, their trio, how they operate, is, I have no doubt what happened at the end of the season and going into, the first week of the transfer window, and sat down and said to all of them, okay, I want these positions. But he probably said, look, and I'm not too fussy. That's the difference between Ange and Conte. Ange probably said, look, I'm not too fussy. Johan, go and look purely at the stats, and you bring me a list and you tell me who's really good, and then I will have a look through all of them and we will come to a decision. And they take their time. They do. It's a database approach. They look, they analyze. And we know with data and with mathematics and analytics, things take time. There's a lot of moving parts to consider when you consider each player's profile. Take Solanke, the eventual signing of Solanke, for example. What would have happened, because I've been following the murmurings, and I know not all you are keen on this, but I follow like the pages and that where like there's kind of rumors or there's kind of like gossip, or people analyze different people, watch videos of people analyze the different strikers, etc. Solanke was a name that has always kind of been thrown around Spurs circles from about the January transfer window or so, from the beginning of the year. So it's not completely a bolt out of the blue, to be fair. And what happened is they sat down, and the Lange and Postecoglou came up with a shortlist, right? The final five on the shortlist was Solanke himself, Ivan Toney, Victor Gyökeres, Luis Openda, and Jonathan David. I firmly believe that was, all the reports I can read, that were the final five. I don't quite know what happened with Santiago Jimenez, if I'm quite honest, because it really has fallen off for Santiago Jimenez. I don't know, he hasn't been linked to anyone this window. There's been some very, very tentative links to Nottingham Forest, of all places, for Santiago Jimenez. Some people are throwing around maybe he should go to Bournemouth now. And he seems quite settled and happy at Feyenoord now. And he didn't have a good Euros of Mexico, which I think didn't really help his case. And he just kind of fallen off people's radar. Arsenal no longer were showing some interest in him. Chelsea never really did. United never really did. West Ham showed some tentative links, but also not super convincing. I would say definitely Spurs showed the biggest link to Santiago Jimenez. And also AC Milan were also showing a lot of interest. AC Milan still haven't sorted out the striker situation completely, so you could still go for him, but they are a lot more set on what they want. They seem to want Tammy Abraham pretty in a pretty big way. And he's already in the Italian League of Roma, so it just works a lot better for them, I think. And most likely, if they do get a striker, it will be Tammy Abraham. So Santiago Jimenez has kind of been falling off, and I don't quite know why, Dad. I know he was one of your favourites. But yeah, I don't think he actually made the final 5 shortlist, if I'm honest, of Ange Postecoglou. So yeah, they sat down, they looked at all of them. Then probably, they would have looked through and apparently what I've been told is that for the last 6 to 8 weeks already, Ange kind of knew he wanted Solanke. So I think unbeknownst to us, probably by the time July came around, he probably knew who he wanted. And he went to Levy and Lange and said, this is the guy I want. And I think maybe Levy kind of hung around a bit saying, well, maybe they'll, if we wait till closer to the season starts, maybe they'll drop the price a bit, maybe 65 will turn to 50 or, 45 and we can put some add-ins there, or maybe we can swap a real, like a player with him if they really want. And then that didn't really materialize. And Ange kind of, as August came around, he kicked them at the backside and said, look here, I told you a month ago, the fans, the media are asking me, where's the striker? What's happening in the window? Why aren't we signing anyone? And then Levy said, okay, shit, well, let's go. And then Lange got to work. And Lange, they go in their negotiations and they discuss a little bit of deals. They get a little bit of payment terms done. But what I think was better with Lange in this approach is that he didn't really hackle too much. He came in with the task saying, okay, Postecoglou told me he wants Dominic Solanke. I need to get it done. I think the same goes for the Archie Gray deal. Same goes for, Madison and all that last season. He wants it done and he doesn't want to wait any longer. I think Lange seems pretty good at getting deals done quickly. Archie Gray negotiations started and basically ended the same day. Negotiations for Solanke were only happening seriously for about 3 days. 3 days, I'm thinking to believe. Medical was done within 24 hours afterwards of the Here We Go from Fabrizio Romano. He's in that shirt, having interviews, etc. Posing. It was very well done. I was very impressed how quickly all of that got done, the medical, etc. after the signing. So clearly we've been laying groundwork for quite a while already. And Postecoglou wanted that exact full week with Solanke. He didn't want him to come to the training ground today, have his medicals, part 1, part 2, then he signs and he does media stuff tomorrow. Then he can only join, Wednesday or Thursday onto the squad for training. No, because he wants this full week. I think that was really clever business from them. Really clever business from Spurs. So that's what they did. And Lange works very differently. Looks purely at data, looks at the type of player they want, and they go for him. Whether it's really the one the fans think are elite or not. That's the truth. And also what we've also learned is that Ange will only go for the guys he wants. Last window, we were moaning because we were like, we want Tapsoba. We've looked at the stats. We've watched him in some games. Some of the pundits are like, I've watched Leverkusen live versus Wolfsburg, and I've seen, Leverkusen a lot better, and Tapsoba plays a lot better. And we don't want Van der Ven. Van der Ven going for second place here. Or like, we don't get Raya. We're like, who's this Vicario guy? Or, Raya, we should have gotten Raya, blah, blah, blah. And both of them have been pretty good. Both pure Postecoglou signings. Madison doesn't really count. We kind of knew everyone kind of wanted Madison, and to be fair, he is a good player. There's still a very good player in there, and he will come right, I think. Van der Ven and Vicario, perfect cases in point from the previous transfer window. Why? Because we are still in the Paratici Conte era, where if we don't get one of the top 5 to 10 in that position in the world, we suddenly think, flip, money wasted. But that's not really how a club that wants to transition and have a project works. You've got to get in someone who fits your style. And Postecoglou, like Arteta, like Pep, I'm putting us in very high esteem there. They want players who can play the way they want to play. And they are very strict with who they let in. And they don't always let in the flashy name. Not every Man City player was an absolute legend when they joined Man City. Not every Arsenal player is makes your jaw drop on the floor when they get signed, when they have been signed. Some of them do. That's what they're called statement signings. But not every signing is a statement signing. Some are just players that have been scouted extensively and, we can see that they're going to do well. Solanke presses very well. He was the first for aerial duels won of all strikers last season. He was first for headed goals. He was second for XG, which is expected goals per 90. He has good pace on him. He's good at what they call running in behind defenders, so he can kind of move in, trick the defenders to give them someone who distracts them from wingers while he's going, and he's very physical in the box. He jumps up, he stands up, he bumps the head in, he puffs out his chest. He gets a job done. He's a old school, very tall, physical striker. From what I believe, he's between 187 and 189, somewhere around there. This is how tall he is. So he's a tall lad, 6'2" striker. And they always it's kind of like almost a cliche, but like a tall striker is a good striker. Gets in positions, brings in play, and apparently what was the highlight for Ange in the data was pressing. That's what he's really good. He's good at just continually moving forward, going forward, bruting, smashing into someone, going forward again, running behind the defender so he can get around him, getting into the penalty box. All 18 of his 19 goals were from the penalty area last season. Not scored from penalties, but when he was in the box. He wants to be in the box, but he will press as much as possible to get there. And from what I'm forced to believe from reading through Bournemouth posts and from seeing Bournemouth fan reactions, what really also sells Solanke compared to maybe some of the other strikers on that list, and we kind of know maybe which one I'm talking about specifically as well as a highlight, is his attitude. Apparently he's a very hard worker. He's one of those guys that, is a bit more of a stoic, calm, collected type striker on the pitch. And in training, he's also not super flashy and joking and being a bit of a clown or whatever. He gets his head down and he wants to let his play do the talking. He doesn't buff himself up. That's why you also see in his interviews now. Like, you don't watch his interviews and kind of feel like, oh, no, this man is flippin' elite. This man is a legend. This man's oozing with confidence. It's not the vibe he gives you. What he tells you, even in the interview in his own words, is, I feel like I'm coming into my own and I really just want to, I just want to, I want to train harder and get better. And I think that's apparently what his mentality. Apparently he also really wanted to come to Spurs to really get that opportunity at a club like us to prove himself. And Ange absolutely loves all of those attributes. He's a previous fan favourite. Ange loves that. He gets on well with many different managers Bournemouth have had over the years, both Championship and Premier League. It's another one. He played the same high press, high attack, all-out attack style of play at Bournemouth with Andoni Iraola. That's 3. He plays, he's good at actually getting to the box and getting those chances away. He can receive those nice curled back shots from Kulusevski or Johnson. That's a 4. He's English, which helps our quota, which I think maybe more than Postecoglou, that really helps Levy a lot because we need to actually and Langer, because we need to have a certain number of English players. So that's number 5. And he's just he works hard and he's not arrogant. That's number 6. So I think I think it's a decent signing for us. It's not elite. It's not an elite striker. Let's not fool ourselves. But if he can score, 15 to 20 goals for us, I think he could maybe even score a bit more, but I'm going to try and be a bit on the conservative side and say 15 to 20. I think that's quite reasonable. If he can score 15 to 20 for us this season, and Son can score, Son can score 10 to 15, and Richarlison can score 10, and Johnson and Kulu and Matters can score a few as well. And Mikey Moore might sneak in a few or what here and there. Werner might sneak in 1 or maybe 2. Porro might hit a world every now and then. Then we've actually really got a lot of goals, guys. If you add 15 to 20 goals on to what we got last season, and and maybe Solanke could even potentially get more, but I don't want to jinx it, so I'll touch wood. Imagine what you then can do to our league position. You can move us from 5th to 4th. You can leave us from 7th to 6th, or from 6th to 4th, or from 4th to 3rd. depending on how our form is. It can really elevate you. So it's good. I'm really glad we signed a striker. And that kind of moves into the third point of let's do the third point, which is what was not surprising. What was not surprising was the massive amount of strikers being passed around the clubs this season. A lot of clubs were looking to let go of current strikers and bring in new strikers, or just didn't have any recognised strikers they wanted to bring in. Spurs brought in a striker, not surprising. West Ham brought in a striker, not surprising. They were using Jared Bowen there the whole of last season, and much like Spurs, both Bowen and Son did a pretty decent job at striker, but they are not actually strikers. And Mikel Antonio is about 35, 36 now. So there's really, you can't just keep relying on him if you're West Ham. To be fair, they've only replaced him with someone who's now also already in their 30s and was surprisingly offered a 5-year contract at age 31 in Füllkrug. But Füllkrug is a solid striker, guys. He's a very decent striker, Füllkrug. Saw Dortmund. Also, sure, all of you might have seen him in some highlights in the Germany World Cup as well. He was usually the second choice striker or rotation or bench striker for Kai Havertz. Very good. Was also in the Champions League final against Real Madrid. Apparently almost scored a goal there. Scored a couple of goals to get them there to that Champions League final. So yeah, I think that's pretty solid business for West Ham. And they've really strengthened in a lot of areas. But yeah, I think strikers going around is not surprising me. Man United, Xerxes, yeah, not surprising either. Chelsea trying to get a striker. They've had 2 deals for already, Duran and Omarodion. Looks like Felix might be the one that sticks for them. But yeah, I'm not surprised they want a striker either. I'm a bit surprised at Man City getting rid of Alvarez. But other than that, all the other striker deals have been quite anticipated. I think what I have, and then finally onto what I have found surprising. What I have found surprising is just how limited actually some of the Premier League clubs have been with their transfer window. I really thought Slot at Liverpool, for example, a new manager coming in. I mean, look at Maresca. He's a new guy coming in. Came in and got backed fully, got a lot of players in that he wanted, or supposedly that he wanted. We don't know. Chelsea sometimes just throw money anyway. But I think some of them probably definitely were what Maresca wanted. What else? New managers. Lopetegui to West Ham. He's got a flippin' amazing window going. They fully backed him immediately with their sporting director. They've got a very good sporting director, though, West Ham. Spurs were actually looking at him before we got Langer. So, yeah, they backed their new manager fully. But then, for some reason, on his side, Liverpool, just nothing. And apparently we're told it's really from Slot's side, actually, that he's also just saying, I don't want really anyone until I'm absolutely sure. But that to me kind of just seems like he's playing, Andrew's transfer window game to an almost extreme level. I mean, Andrew's quite insistent, but at least eventually he says, no, you know what, actually, please, I want this guy. Whereas Slot is maybe just, I think because he's so fresh in the job, and to the Premier League, and taking on from legend like Klopp, and he sees actually the team is pretty damn good based off their preseason, he's like, I'm actually not that worried. And he worked it fine, or he didn't work with stars there. So maybe he's like, you know what, this team's already 3 levels higher than I'm used to. Who do I need, really? I can do with what I've got here. But I'm a bit surprised. I do expect Liverpool to maybe get, I'd say, 2 deals done before the end of this transfer window. I'd be surprised if they signed less than 2 people. Arsenal also haven't been as involved as I thought they would be. Calafiori is really their big draw that they've done. It's their big gun. I thought they would have gone for an established striker. I've kind of seen memories the whole window of Victor Gyökeres to Arsenal. I'm not sure why they haven't really tried to pull a trigger on that or whatever. I think they just really spent a lot of money with Declan Rice and their window last season. So maybe they're now suffering a bit. And I think Arteta just maybe wants... I think Havertz did a lot better than Arteta might have actually thought of. And when you look back at the stats at the end of the season reflection, you probably realise, you know what... Havertz is actually okay. I'm not desperate anymore. And apparently you really like Tony, but had one conversation with him and kind of just said, no, I just don't want this guy. He's not for me. I think, I'm surprised Arsenal haven't gotten a striker. That I'm surprised about. And there's not many rumours of them wanting a striker either, which is surprising. And I'm surprised Liverpool have not made any signings. For me, that's the 2 biggest shocks. Third shock is, Alvarez going to Atletico Madrid. I didn't really expect City to sell Alvarez. I must say, I think that's maybe a bit of like the overconfidence showing, kind of like when they said, you know what, it's fine. Like when I'm trying to remember what the example was last season where everyone shook their heads at them. Yeah, it's when they brought Kovacic in from Chelsea. Gundogan. I think it's a similar vibe to Gundogan, this Alvarez one, where you're kind of like, are you maybe being a bit of an Icarus here? Do you think you're flying at the sun and you think you can now not get burnt? You're selling some of your best players, signing your good rotation options. You may be relying a bit more on the unknown quantities a bit, or you're just relying on the Pep system and the Pep Guardiola vibes to get you through, and Haaland to just smash everything so that nothing else matters. You don't know that. Another thing I'm surprised Ivan Toney hasn't gotten an offer. I'm surprised. I said to my mates at the Bachelors this weekend, I said to them, the only way Toney is leaving Brentford, and I firmly believe this more and more, is if Man United panic after their first game or two, and in the final week of the window, try to scupper some sort of deal for Brentford. But I think Brentford are going to play more hardball than we might anticipate. I think even in the final week of the window, if United are stupid and are like, okay, 25, 30 mil, they're going to laugh at them. They're going to say, okay, no, give us 40. Give us 40, give us 40, give us 40. 2 days the window's going to go. United's going to say, okay, what about 35? And they're going to say, no, we want 40. Final day of the window, Man United's going to go, 40. And then Brentford's going to say, well, whoops, we actually got Thiago. We haven't managed to replace a striker. You haven't given us enough time. Tony's happy to stay. Cheers. That's kind of what I could see happening. I think that's the only club he can move to now, Man United or Saudi. I think that's basically where Ivan Toney's going to end up if he leaves. But I think most likely he'll be at Brentford for one more season and then get a pick of wherever he wants next season on a free transfer. Hell of business for him going on a free, and hell of business for the club that gets him next season, getting him on a free transfer. But yeah, I think, it's that's what I'm surprised of, not surprised of this window. But yeah, I think we're going to enter part 2. I'm just going to take a bit of a short break, and then we'll be back with part 2. Please stay and try and listen to the whole video. I do try to be as informative as possible, and make this very informative, so that we can better our football knowledge and to make better predictions for the season and have expectations, or reflect before we start the season. So yeah, thank you if you stayed to watch this whole time, and we'll be back with the next part soon.